Dashing is an essential part of most 2D platformer games. Take Hollow Knight for an example. Once you get dashing, you are able to advance to more different levels and able to access different puzzles. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to create dashing into your own simple 2D platformer game. Inside this sample scene, I have a ground, a player, and then on that player, I have a player movement script, and if you would like to follow that player movement script tutorial, I will put a link in the description. To make our player be able to dash, we are going to add a trail renderer component to our player. This trail renderer right here, we can change the width down, we can change this, and we can add another little node down here at the end. And then we can set this to the first to 0.5 and then the second to 0. We can change emitting to off, and we can change the material. We can change the material of this to the default line material, and this is just so that we will be able to see where we are dashing. This line right here, that just makes it say it'll fade out after a little bit. We can change the time to something like 0.2 because that's how long we'll be dashing for. And then the color, you can change it to whatever you'd like, but I'm just going to change the color of mine to something like red, and then you see I have like a red gradient right there, and that could be my thing. So I'm going to open up my player movement script, and then we can code in there. In this player movement script, this looks just like the player movement script that I have another tutorial in. If you'd like to follow that, there will be a link in the description. So up at the top, we're going to have to create a few more variables. The first will be a public reference to our trail render, so we can get that. We can name this trail renderer, and then we are also going to have to get a public boolean, and this is going to be able to dash, and this is going to see if we are able to dash or not, because we will have a cooldown on our dash. We're going to have a private boolean, and this is going to be is dashing, and this is going to be if we're dashing or not, because if we're dashing, we should not be able to move or jump, so we can put that in our move and jump functions. We're going to get a private float, and we're going to name this speed. We can set the value of speed to something like 30, or we're going to get a private float. We can name this power, and this is going to be the power of our dash. We can set this to something like 30. We're going to get another private. We're going to get another private float. We can name this cooldown, and we can set this to something like 0.5 so that we can dash a lot. Or you can set this to something like 1 or 2. And this will be how many seconds it will be until we can dash again. And then we're going to have another private float, and this is going to be the time that it takes to dash. I'm going to set this to something like 0.3. And then I have an error right here because if it's a float, you have to put an F after it to make sure it's a float. And then down here at the bottom, we're going to create a private IE numerator. And then this IE numerator we can name dash. And then we're using an IE numerator just so that we are able to create stops in this method so that we can just wait for the dash to be over and then stop the whole entire method. So what we're going to first set is we're going to set able to dash. We're going to set this to be false, because if this method is called, we are going to be dashing. So we're going to set is dashing. We're going to set this to true. And then we're going to have to change our gravity to 0, because if we're dashing, then you shouldn't have to fall. So we're going to get a reference to our rigid body 2D. We can do rigid body 2D.gravity scale, and I'm going to just set this to 0 so that we won't be able to fall. Now we're going to have to dash like we're actually going to dash. So what I will do is I'll go to my rigid body 2D. We'll go to rigid body 2D.velocity, I'll set this equal to a new vector 2, and then inside this vector 2, we're going to put for the x-axis power, and then for the y-axis 0, because we're not going to be moving up and down on the y-axis. And if you have a method in your move script that allows your player to flip, you can do right here, you can do transform dot local scale dot x times power, and then this will allow you to dash in both directions. But since I do not have a flip function in my update method right here, I do not need this, but I'm going to add it right here. And then we're going to after this, we are going to have to be able to wait for this dash to be over. So what we're going to do is we can go create a yield return new wait for seconds. And then what this does is this just stops this method right here until this wait for seconds is over. And the reason we have the IEnumerator is that we are able to do this inside of this method and this method only. So inside this wait for seconds, it's going to look for a time. So I'm just going to put the time, and then this, and now we are done dashing. So what we can do is we can set is dashing. We're going to set this equal to false, and then we're going to get another yield return new wait for seconds. And then in this one, we're going to get our cooldown. So now after this, we can set able to dash. We can set this to true. And then once we've done dashing, we're going to want to set our gravity scale back to whatever it needs to be. So I'm going to get the reference to our rigid body 2D. We can get dot gravity scale. And then my gravity scale in this sample scene is set to 5, but if yours is set to 1, you can set that to 1 if you'd like. And then what we're going to have to do is, since we added the trail renderer on our player, we're going to have to activate that and deactivate it. So right up here, before this first wait for seconds, we can get the reference to our trail renderer, and we can set dot emitting. And this just makes the trail renderer make a trail after our player, and we can set this to true, so that when we're dashing, we would like this to be true, so we have a dash. And then once this is done, right after this first wait for seconds, we're going to set our trail renderer dot emitting, and we can set this to false, because we don't want a trail following our player all around after our dash is finished. So now what we're able to do is up at the top here, we're going to set able to dash. We're going to set this to true, and then just because we would like to be able to dash in the first place. And then right here we have to see if we're able to move or not, because if we are dashing, we're not able to move. So this right here is my line of code that makes me able to move, and if you're using the same player movement script as I am, you'll have the same line of code. So I'm just going to create an if statement right here, and then if not is dashing. So if exclamation point is dashing, and then we're going to put this line of code inside of here. And then I have a line of code for jumping right here. If input is space and is grounded, I'm also going to add and not is dashing. So right there, we are not able to dash while we're moving or jumping, and we're not able to move or jump while we're dashing, which is nice. So now we're going to have to add something so we can dash. So now let's create an if statement, and then we can do if input dot get key down, and then you're going to do key code dot whatever key that you would like to do. I'm going to click key code dot m because that's the key that I'd like to use for my dash. And if you want to do anything else like key code dot k or l, you can put that right there in that key code. And then right here, Since this is an IEnumerator, we can't just call this method. We're going to have to call the start coroutine, and then parentheses, and then call our method, just because this is a special type of method that we are allowed to use these wait for seconds. So now we can go back into the Unity editor, and once we're here, we're going to have to change a few things to our player movement script. Right here, we're going to set able to dash is set to true. That's just the beginning, and then we're going to have to drag our trail renderer into this trail renderer right here. I'm also going to change the speed and jump height of my player. You don't have to change this if you have what you'd like. And then we can click play and then be able to dash in our game. Now you can see when I've entered play mode, I have a simple player movement script, and when I push M, my player dashes across the screen. You can see that I have a cooldown and that my player's gravity is cancelled out when he's in the air. You can see that he is flying around here with this little red trail renderer that stops after he is finished.
Thank you for following along through this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, please give our channel a like and subscribe because it really helps out a ton. If you have any things that you would like to be made into a tutorial, drop it in the comment section below and we will make a tutorial on it for you.